Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, disruptors, and creators who are making things happen. And today we have a unique episode of the podcast. We're actually talking about one of Tyler and my favorite things about Venture Cafe. And if you know anything about Venture Cafe, or if you've ever attended a Thursday gathering, you know that part of their mission is to work to build stronger and more inclusive innovation ecosystems. And as we've traveled to gatherings in different cities, we've seen that Venture Cafe actually does this, and they do that well. And today we're actually going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some entrepreneurs that are working to create a more inclusive ecosystem. And if you're new to the podcast, you can actually go back and watch the full entire episodes of each of these people that we're featuring. So you're going to hear just a little bit from each of these people. First off, we're going to start with Dominic Artis, and he is the CEO of Act House. So Act House exists to develop the next generation of Black and brown innovators. And over the last couple of years, they've actually supported the launch of 22 startups. So let's hear from Dominic Artis.
I think a lot of us around the table know a lot of the issues that pretty much our society and our nations kind of come from, and really particularly for African Americans and Hispanics, some of the loops and hurdles that they've had to go through from a systematic oppression aspect. And so what we found is that it's not necessarily a matter of like capacity or like smarts, it's access. And once you begin to provide access to people that have been in situations where they've had to be innovative or be more resourceful because there wasn't enough resources, then they can go to new heights. Yeah. And so for us, it was a tough decision, but it was one that I was very happy about. One, being a military brat, growing up in America, but also overseas, was always just exposed to like diverse communities and cultures. And so to really to focus on Black and brown for us was just, okay, we're tired of hearing about a problem. And we think the solution that we have is going to lead to economic opportunity and job creation amongst these individuals. And so, why not, right? I was one, youngest of four, lived in an apartment with my family for roughly about 10 to 12 years when we came back from overseas. And I was just like, hey, we had a fantastic life like over here. Like, what's going on over here? But, you realize and you see the problems in your own community. And so instead of just talking about it, like be about it and do the work and put the boots on and strap up. So, yeah.
Next up, we have Chad Bernstein. He is the CEO and co-founder of Guitars Over Guns. Chad is an accomplished jazz musician, and he's also the founder of this nonprofit. And what he has found over the years is that access to music also has a correlation with access to other public services and other resources that actually have a big impact on the opportunities you have accessible to you. So Chad has started Guitars Over Guns to help make a difference in the communities near him.
I think one of the things that has been a result of this work is that, we're treating the point of music access and opportunity in that sense. And we're working with kids. And when you start to form real meaningful relationships with kids, you start to uncover some of the obstacles that are standing between them and success. Those obstacles and the access to music are all rooted in, inequities and injustices in our society and larger systemic issues and root causes of these problems, are significant, and they are steeped in poverty and, you can just continue to trace it back. And so a large part of where we're trying to head with this work is how do we not operate in a silo and in a vacuum of music, but like address some of the larger systemic barriers that are creating these points of inaccess. Through music, we're finding a way in. And because we do popular music and hip hop and pop and music, we're trying to meet the kids where they're at, both physically and emotionally and, in all ways. So we go to the schools, we enact the program after school, which first of all just keeps kids in a safe place, which is a victory to begin with, and provide them with a meal. That alone is like, you wouldn't believe how significant that is. Some of our kids are not eating properly, if not at school, or at all. And you cannot ask a kid to focus and be disciplined and all these other things that we're expecting of kids unless base level needs are met. Yeah. And so when we talk about, we're going in there with the the hat of like, I'm going to teach you music, and through music, I'm going to build a mentor relationship. And you find out the kids aren't sleeping properly because things are going on at home, or they're sharing a room with 3 siblings, or living with another family, or not eating right, or, you know, there's stress and trauma as a result of the living conditions that they're operating within. Those are things that you can't just turn your back and say, yeah, but music. You know, those are the things that are like, all right, well, now that you start to see a little bit more of the picture and your spectrum of perception widens, you can't just stay in your lane anymore. And so it's not about, all right, well, I think our job is to solve all those problems, but how do we start thinking collaboratively and collectively about having real community impact, and what does real community impact look like? And for us, that means engaging people that can start to address some of these factors and build a critical mass, not only of people that are addressing the problem, but of young people that are breaking the cycle, that are taking the problem on their own shoulders and saying, you know, I now have a window into this, that not only do I have a window into this because I've lived it, but now I have a window into how to get out of this, and I care about this, and I acknowledge my own power as an individual in this movement to create change.
Next up, we have Felicia Hatcher, and her goal is to create inclusive and diverse tech startup ecosystems. She's also the co-founder of Code Fever, Black Tech Week, and many other things as well. Actually, too many to list here. Let's hear from Felicia.
We started Black Tech Week, and we're into the 5th year. One, because like as a training organization, like we wanted to move away from the train and pray model, right? Which a lot of organizations are in. Like, you're training and you're praying that there's an opportunity on the other end of this training program, right? Once your students graduate. And oftentimes the community does not have anything else for them to do. So you're kind of putting them up on this cliff and just like, you're done, you know? And we wanted to, as much as possible, ensure that there were internship opportunities, mentorship opportunities, job opportunities, or just as much as possible clear pathways, right? And we couldn't ensure that a few years ago. And so that's where Black Tech Week became really important. There was also a study that came out that said in order to increase the number of minorities that are hired, especially in STEM fields, you first have to increase the number of companies that are founded by these people. Because when you are from a minority group and you are in a position, a hiring authority, you're more than likely to give that person their first chance, right? That's not just from a race or ethnic standpoint, that's from a gender standpoint, even like a sexual preference standpoint. Like we see that over and over again.
So how do we tackle that challenge of inclusion in such a diverse city with so many resources?
Yeah. I think, one, we have to be very honest about what Miami is and what it's not, right? And so it is very diverse, but it's diverse by default and not intention. And so as much as we kind of lean on that, it also handicaps us in the way of never actually trying to figure out like how to fix that problem. And it's the other side of that is it's also a lot of grassroots organizations trying to fix that problem, and it also needs to be top down, right? And so there are policy changes that can be made to better support like that kind of activity so that we can all kind of meet in the middle and actually have an impact. I always make recommendations like, why don't we give away like top diversity awards with major corporations here? Like, we celebrate everything else, right? And some people may think that's very superficial, but it's like corporations like to compete. And so like, how can we make them compete on like who has the most diverse hiring practices here? Who has the most diverse social corporate responsibility, like initiatives and missions here? Like, some company wants to tout that flag. And when they do that and personally kind of take that ownership, we'll start to see some changes that then kind of trickle down to everything else, right? But like, it has to start somewhere, and then it also has to start everywhere, like all at the same time.
Finally, we have Keelan Ashad Bishop. Keelan is a biomedical scientist and an advocate with a PhD in cancer biology. She frequently speaks about the importance of inclusion in science and advocacy, and the responsibility of science and scientists to advance positive social change. Let's hear from Keelan.
Women and people of color are largely asked to erase parts of their identity or experience, things that very much make them who they are in the interest of pursuing science as it currently is. So that's what I mean when I say systems. It's an environment that goes, we only want that one part of you. And when you're tearing away bits of yourself for so long, it just gets really, really hard to stay resilient. Because science is hard enough when you bring your full self to the table. Like 9 times out of 10 experiments don't work. And if you have a mouse project the way that I did, your mice are randomly dying or popping up with tumors, and you didn't ask them to pop up with tumors. And so there's enough, unexpected turmoil without, having to worry about also segmenting parts of yourself to be accepted or to be considered worthy of help or sponsorship.
I have a question, but I'm trying to figure out how to word it.
Okay, take your time.
It's something I read in your bio. It was I got to word it right. It's like about how it's almost like you're marketing science to advocate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you got to be able to speak as a scientist and as an advocate.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily the C-Rise part, but
no,
the
in
rest of your stuff.
general. So science communication is, to me, the most important part of being a scientist. If I was to lock myself in this here room and do the greatest the greatest scientific work that's ever been done, it would mean nothing if no one knew about it, right? And that's a problem. That's another problem that contributes to inadequate representation. The way that we market science as something that you do locked away and you don't talk about, you can't do out on the corner of Northwest 20th Street or Northwest 20th Ave and Northwest 7th Street or whatever. I think I flipped them. That leads to some people wanting to disengage. Like, what I find most exciting about scientific work is talking about it and is switching your messaging so that you can make it appeal to people who may not know that they care about molecular biology or cancer biology. I love when people meet me and they go, "You're a what? I've never met one of you before. Wow, you're so normal." Like, those are the conversations that I live for, because that's really the transformative work. That's shifting an image. If we had scientists that were more gifted in communicating their work in a relevant way to whatever space that they happen to be in at that moment, we wouldn't be where we are when it comes to science and society. So like the low level of scientific literacy, the literal fake news that comes out every day surrounding innovation in science and scientific advances, we would be a lot further. And if we, could, even at this current moment, garner public support for science, we could get a lot further. You see that viral fundraising campaign. Can you imagine if we did that for some of the clinical trials that take millions of dollars to conduct for under-resourced people in scientific research? Like, we could actually take part in transformative work, but because we don't understand science as a society, we don't support it in the same way that we support other things. And that's a problem, because science drives innovation, and we need innovative solutions to a lot of the problems that we're facing. Climate change and sea level rise is just one. We also have things like poverty. We have growing educational and income disparities. We have a lack of affordable housing and hypergentrification of urban areas. Like, we need solutions to all of these things. And those things require innovation, which is to me, the end point of anything STEM.
For more episodes, visit innovationcity.co and be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. If you're in Miami, visit us at Venture Cafe on Thursday nights. You can find details at venturecafemiami.org and connect with us on social at WeAreSlam and Venture Cafe MIA.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams